There once was a woman who wanted so very much to have a tiny little child, but she did not know where to find one. So she went to an old witch and she said, "I have set my heart upon having a tiny little child. Please, could you tell me where I can find one?" "Why, that's easily done," said the witch. "Here's a grain of barley for you. But it isn't at all the sort of barley that farmers grow in their fields, or that the chickens get to eat. Put it in a flower pot, and you'll see what shall see." "Oh, thank you," the woman said. She gave the witch 12 pennies and planted the barley seed as soon as she got home. It quickly grew into a fine large flower, which looked very much like a tulip, but the petals were folded tight as though it were still in a bud. "This is such a pretty flower," said the woman. She kissed its lovely red and yellow petals, and just as she kissed it, the flower gave a loud pop and flew open. It was a tulip right enough, but on the green cushion in the middle of it sat a tiny girl. She was dainty and fair to see, but she was no taller than your thumb, so she was called Thumbelina. A nicely polished walnut shell served as her cradle. Her mattress was made of the blue petals of violets, and a rose petal was pulled over to cover her. That was how she slept at night. In the daytime, she played on a table where the woman put a plate surrounded with a wreath of flowers. Their stems lay in the water, on which there floated a large tulip petal. Thumbelina used to use the petal as a boat, and with a pair of white horse ears for oars, she could row clear across the plate, a charming sight. She could sing too. Her voice was the softest and sweetest that anyone has ever heard. One night, as she lay in her cradle, a horrible toad hopped in through the window. One of the panes was broken. This big, ugly, slimy toad jumped right down onto the table where Thumbelina was asleep, under a red rose petal. "Here's a perfect wife for my son," the toad exclaimed. She seized upon the walnut shell in which Thumbelina lay asleep and hopped off with it, out the window and into the garden. A big broad stream ran through it, with a muddy marsh along its banks, and here the toad lived with her son. He was just like his mother, slimy and horrible. "Quack, quack, 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 quack," was all that he could say when he saw the graceful little girl in the walnut shell. "Don't speak so loud or you'll wake her up," the old toad told him. "She might get away from us yet, for she is as light as a puff of swan's down. We must put her on one of the broad water lily leaves out in the stream. She is so small and light that it will be just like an island to her, and she can't run away from us while we are making our best room under the mud ready for you two to live in." Many water lilies with broad green leaves grew in the stream, and it looked as if they were floating on the surface. The leaf which lay furthest from the bank was the largest of them all, and it was to this leaf that the old toad swam with the walnut shell which held Thumbelina. The poor little thing woke up early next morning, and when she saw where she was, she began to cry bitterly. There was water all around the big green leaf, and there was no way at all for her to reach the shore. The old toad sat in the mud, decorating a room with green rushes and yellow water lilies to have it looking its best for her new daughter-in-law. Then she and her ugly son swam out to the leaf on which Thumbelina was standing. They came for her pretty little bed, which they wanted to carry to the bridal chamber before they took her over there. The old toad curtsied deep in the water before her and said, "Meet my son. He is to be your husband, and you will share a delightful home in the mud." Quack, quack, was all that the son could say. Then they took the pretty little bed and swam away with it. Left all alone on the green leaf, Thumbelina sat down and cried. She did not want to live within the slimy toad's house, and she did not want to have the toad's horrible son for her husband. The little fishes who swam in the water beneath her had seen the toad and heard what she had said. So up popped their heads to have a little look at the girl. No sooner had they seen her than they felt very sorry that anyone so pretty should have to go down and live with that hideous toad. No, that should never be. They gathered around the green stem which held the leaf where she was, and gnawed it too with their teeth. Away went the leaf down the stream, and away went Thumbelina, far away from the toad, where the toad could not catch her. Thumbelina sailed past many a place, and when the little birds in the bushes saw her, they sang, "What a darling little girl!" The leaf drifted further and further away with her, and so it was that Thumbelina became a traveler. A lovely white butterfly kept fluttering around her, and at last